Welcome to Priceless Takes.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 21 of Priceless Takes. We are live from South Carolina in the United States. My name is Luka Price. I am your host for Priceless Takes. Joining me again is Mr. Gabe Golden. Gabe, how are you doing today?
I'm doing good. How you been?
I have been flying high, Gabe, if I'm being honest, because, ladies and gentlemen, the Super Bowl is now over, and what a game it was. If you missed our previous episode, Gabe and I gave our predictions. It got pretty hot and steamy. We were getting into it, but ultimately, myself came out victorious, which, I mean, I don't think our viewers will really be that surprised. My stats man behind the scenes told me for every I have 3 good takes to 1 stinky take, and luckily this was one of my better ones. So it wasn't close, it wasn't easy, but Patrick Mahomes got the Kansas City Chiefs over the line. We will give you our breakdown from the big game. We will also talk about some other news relating to head coaching vacancies and also quarterback free agency, and we will get straight into it. Super Bowl weekend. What a game. 38-35 to the Chiefs in what was the second highest ever scoring Super Bowl, and I don't think this disappointed. Many were expecting an offensive shootout. I don't think many were expecting this much of an offensive shootout. I think, Gabe, I did a little bit better than you in the score predictions, but not really by much. We were both in similar sort of ballparks, just around the late 20s, early 30s. We didn't really see both teams getting into the mid to high 30s. But this was a great game. I'm not going to talk too much about the stats. I'll let Gabe speak relatively quickly on his thoughts. But a quick quarterback comparison. Patrick Mahomes was 21 of 27 passing, 182 yards, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Jalen Hurts, 27 of 38 completions for 304 yards, 1 touchdown, 0 interceptions, 1 fumble. Hurts in this game, the first quarterback ever in a Super Bowl to have 3 rushing touchdowns and a pass touchdown. And that was I think, the standout, really, of Jalen Hurts' performance. But, Gabe, we're going to get straight into it. Obviously, this game had a lot of layers to it. The Chiefs winning at halftime, up by 10 points. Mahomes scoring on every single drive in the second half. But ultimately, many think it came down to that late holding call at the end. But I want to get it from you. What do you think was the biggest reason the Chiefs won this game?
I think they knew they had to get the ball out very quick with Mahomes and make sure he was protected. So I think the biggest thing, the best part of the Chiefs was their O-line. They didn't let up a sack. They balled out. They knew they had to protect him. The first time he got tackled was when he re-injured that ankle, which was like, it was like, crap, this game might be over. But after that, he came out, they protected him, and he got the ball out quick. Receivers got open. Kelsey balled out, of course. You always expect that. But I think, O-line, biggest difference makers.
Yeah, listen, on the Philadelphia defense side, I'd say maybe the most disappointing day of the season. They had a 25.9% pressure on dropbacks, which was their second lowest all season. I didn't hear Hassan Reddick's name really called once. I didn't hear any of these other guys called at all, really. So for me, I did say this on the Friday episode. If the Eagles did win this game, I did think Hassan Reddick was going to win the Super Bowl MVP. But again, I said there was a 0% chance of that happening. But I think we can both agree, if the Eagles did pull this game off, Jalen Hurts is 100% going to win Super Bowl MVP. Yeah. But the main reason the Chiefs won this game, Gabe, comes down to one man, and that man is Patrick Mahomes. Because when push came to shove, he made the big plays, and that's what got them over the line. He didn't have the flashiest statistical game, but he did everything he needed to do. Okay, he was down by 10 points at the end of the first half. In the second half, he was 13 of 14 completions for 93 yards and 2 touchdowns. He did everything he needed to do. He had a huge scramble, 26-yard scramble, which ultimately led to the game-winning field goal drive. He was doing everything, particularly at the end of the second quarter, when he went down with that ankle injury, when he got tackled on that scramble. Everyone who I was watching it with, which included yourself, was having a good old chuckle in my face that Patrick Mahomes was screwed. And I think most of the NFL world thought that when he was grimacing on the sideline in pain, it was not good. And I don't know what they shot into that ankle, but I didn't think he would be able to have a heroic performance like he did against Joe Burrow in the AFC Championship game. But I think you could argue in the Super Bowl, the magnitude of the game against a pretty vaunted defense, which underperformed, obviously, in this game. Great credit to the offensive line. Mahomes pulled this one out. And on the offensive line, I think this is something I also did predict, is I think that the Tampa Bay Super Bowl 2 years ago really helped them because they came in with a plan, they executed, and the protection was great. Mahomes didn't get sacked a single time. He got tackled, obviously, in scramble situations, but he didn't get sacked at all. And the other thing is that I thought the rushing game was the real difference maker too. Isaiah Pacheco had an absolute standout performance. I think credit to you. You probably saw this one being a big difference maker. I didn't quite see him coming as well as he did. He was 5.1 yards per carry, 76 yards and a touchdown. McKinnon only had 4 carries, but 34 yards, which I think were very valuable, along with Mahomes also having the 44 rush yards. The Chiefs outrushed the Eagles 158 to 115, which, especially in the second half, they were able to run the ball so effectively, and this is why they were also able to get down the field. They didn't rely too heavily on the Mahomes passing game. But I also want to know from you, Gabe, in the grand scheme of things, there are some things people are saying the Eagles could have done differently regarding to how they defended, clock management, other things. Do you think there were many things, or do you think there was one thing in particular the Eagles could have done differently in this game to potentially change the outcome?
I mean, when it comes down to it, not really, because, I mean, you are playing against Patrick Mahomes, and, I mean, he's insane. I mean, he's by far the best player in the NFL. But, I mean, I did think that I knew the Chiefs O-line was solid, but I know me and you talked about it a little bit after the podcast. I thought that their pass rush would be a little bit better than it was. I thought they were going to get to him at least 3 times. So they very much surprised me when it came to that. I expected Kelsey, to get open and stuff, but I thought they could have done a little bit better, especially in the second half with in the secondary guarding Juju. Juju had some really big third down, second down catches in the second half. So I think the Philly defense, secondary wise, started slacking off a little bit, and then the pass rush didn't really seem to be there all that much. So I think they might have had an off day. I know that the field was slippery and all that, and they said that's not an excuse or whatever. But I think they kind of underperformed.
Yeah, listen, I think we talk about the game, the NFC Championship game with the San Francisco 49ers and their quarterback debacle, but we did hear both Brandon Ayuk and Deebo Samuel take shots at the Philadelphia defense midweek leading into the Super Bowl, saying that Mahomes would expose them. And quite frankly, I think he did. I mean, 2 out of 4 possessions in the second half, 3 touchdowns and a field goal. And I think if it had to be a touchdown, it would have been a touchdown. It was a field goal because it was the game-winning field goal. I think that is really exposed if I'm the Philadelphia defense. We saw particularly on the 2 out of the 3 touchdowns in the second half, Sky Moore and Kadarius Toney beat the Philadelphia defense on the exact same play, faking the jet sweep across and then cutting back inside. That was the exact same play both times, and the Philadelphia defense was fooled. But you brought up the point about Juju Smith-Schuster, 7 receptions for 53 yards, and he was incredible for them when Kelsey wasn't getting much run in the second half. Kelsey really set the tone for the game, but then I think what also allowed Juju to get open is because the Eagles, like you said, were focusing so much on Kelsey that someone else had to be open somewhere across the field because there was that much attention being paid to Kelsey, similar to what the Bengals did in the second half of the AFC Championship game. And we saw MVS get a run in that game, who didn't have a single catch in this game, by the way. So I think it really shows how the Chiefs receivers were able to step up. The other big thing is Kadarius Toney. He had the touchdown, but he also had a 65-yard punt return, a Super Bowl record, which was able to give the Chiefs a 28-27 lead. And this was a big momentum changer in the game. So once again, I think this comes down to the discipline of the Chiefs. I think it also comes down to the coaching, because personally, I think the coaching, the masterpiece that Andy Reid pulled off also needs to be talked about, because he was dialing up all the right stuff, from the run game to the screen game to Mahomes passing. He was dialing up everything, and the Eagles defense, they had no answers. And I think the fact that Andy Reid, in my opinion, won the coaching battle is another big reason as to why they were able to come out with this game.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up too. Like, once the Chiefs got into the red zone, I mean, the Philly defense, they just had no clue where the ball was going. Like you said, that same play, they just switched the sides of the field, wide open both times. He's always calling those little, weird, like, odd plays where, Mahomes start running out, he'll just pitch it underneath to Kelsey or something odd like that. And they're very, very good in the red zone. So, yeah, and props to Andy Reid. I mean, he's arguably the best coach in the league. Definitely up there for sure. And, yeah, Kadarius Toney, I mean, he's probably my favorite player in the league to watch, even when he was at the Giants. Because, I mean, he wouldn't get all that much involvement, but every time he caught the ball, he would go 7 yards further than you thought he would, just because I don't know how he gets out. Have you seen the picture on the punt return where it's him and there's the 5 defenders around him, and it was like Kadarius Toney got out of this? And you look at it, and it's like, there's no way. And then he somehow, slithers his way around and gets through. It's
was
ridiculous.
It on the original play when he had, and then he cut back around, or was it at the end of the play?
Yeah,
when
play. Okay, it was at the start. Yeah,
I didn't see that, but
it's nuts.
In the moment of the game, because quite often, I mean, sometimes I think with the actual punt return itself, we see that sometimes they run into a brick wall and they cut around the outside and they get met by an equally larger brick wall. And sometimes we see a 50-yard, a 60-yard, a punt return that goes to the house. But I agree with you. I think Toney is one of those players that every time he gets the ball, he legitimately could take it to the house and be a touchdown threat.
Yeah.
And I think that is why he's so exciting to watch. I think the Giants will be probably kicking themselves with that one, but he wasn't getting utilized there anyway. So, I mean, what can you really do? You'd rather see him at least have some success somewhere than rot in a locker room that isn't utilizing him and he doesn't want to be there.
Yeah, I know Andy Reid and Kelsey, the first week that he got there, they were both like, we can't believe that the Giants let this guy go. They said that he was super, super funny and, like, he was crazy, crazy smart. They said he was learning plays and he was actually, like, really, really focused. I think he was just excited to be on a good team to actually get a chance, because they didn't really like him all that much in New York. And then, I mean, Andy Reid, he knew what to put him on returns. He's elusive. Yeah. Little trick plays where he's insanely fast too. So yeah, I'm glad to see him playing well and get him a Super Bowl, score a touchdown in the Super Bowl. It was a big day for him.
Yeah, it was a huge day. I think, again, with the coaching we saw last week, 2 weeks ago in the AFC Championship, Sky Moore had a big punt return that turned the game around. So I think not only Andy Reid, but also the whole special teams of Kansas City, all the coaching staff, big adjustments, big results. But I do want to switch gears a little bit to the Eagles' offense, generally speaking. Look, on face value, if you saw this game from a statistical standpoint, many would probably think the Eagles pulled this game out. I mean, honestly, if I saw it from the general stats, talking about time of possession, the Eagles controlled the game, really. They had 35 minutes, 47 seconds of possession to the Chiefs, 24 minutes, 13. The Eagles had 25 first downs to the Chiefs 21. The Eagles had 72 plays to the Chiefs 53 and were 11 of 18 on third down. The Chiefs only 4 of 8. So that's some big stats right there. But I also want to talk about Jalen Hurts, because I will come out publicly and apologize to Jalen Hurts, because personally I had I didn't have little to no faith, but I didn't have a lot of faith in Jalen Hurts in this game. And I thought the moment would be too big for him. And it really wasn't. He shined in this game. And to his credit, the Chiefs defense really said, we're going to take away this run game and we're going to make Jalen beat us with his arm. And he really did. He had three plays of two plays of over 40 yards. He had a third one to Devontae, but the catch was overruled on a challenge. But he had the big play to A.J. Brown. He had a big play to Devontae after the Chiefs scored the touchdown. He had the 2-point conversion. He picked up a 3rd and 14, finding Dallas Goedert. He was making every single play. He had a 4th and 5 he picked up with his legs. And it was a great performance from him. I want to know, Gabe, on a scale of 1 to 10, what do you give Jalen Hurts' performance in this game?
I would have to go with a 9. I mean, he played, like you said, every third down, it was like almost a guaranteed first down for them. It was every single time he was picking them apart, doing it really well. I think that, honestly, the Philly offense and Jalen Hurts especially, they did almost everything they could. I mean, you score 35 points in the Super Bowl. You would like to think that with your number 1, number 2 ranked defense that you're going to win that game. So, I think he balled out. I expect him to have a good game. We talked about that. I wasn't doubting him. I did not expect him to be that good. I know you were over here and we were talking every single third down he completed. We were just looking at you and, he can't make the throw.
I was waiting, and I kept on waiting, to be honest. I kept on waiting.
But yeah, he did better than I thought he was going to, and I had really high expectations. So, I have to give him a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, listen, I am a little bit lower. I'm going to give him an 8. And the only reason I'm giving him an 8 is because of the turnover. And I've been going back and forth on this turnover for a long time because you look at it in the grand scheme of things. You see the Eagles are up 14-7. That turnover, he didn't fumble. Well, he dropped the ball. It wasn't a forced fumble. Really, what happened was on the play, the Chiefs and the Eagles, they lined up with the 5 offensive linemen. They started to rush 5. They double-teamed Chris Jones, Jason Kelsey, and the right guard double-teamed Chris Jones. And then what happened was the spy, who was Nick Bolton, waited for Jalen Hurts. Jalen Hurts saw him, juked across, and Nick Bolton came for him, and he dropped the ball just as he was getting there. So personally, if you want to fault the offensive line, but I think a big part of their game was doubling Chris Jones, so that's something that could be questioned. But also, if Jalen Hurts doesn't fumble that ball and the Eagles go down the field and go up 21-7, because before that, Butker missed a field goal, which would have put the Chiefs up 10-7, which, could have also swung some momentum. If they go up 21-7, Gabe, as good as Mahomes is, we might be having a different conversation here right now if the Eagles go up 21-7 in that moment. And obviously that's all speculation and we don't know that, but we need to talk about what did happen. And what did happen is Jalen Hurts had, quite frankly, a nightmare play. And although he did go down the next drive and he did score a touchdown and put them up 21-14, I still think that this play did give a fair bit of momentum to the Chiefs. And although it's harsh, and obviously the Eagles said after the game, there was a bunch of different plays that led to the result. But I think that the turnover was a big factor as to why the Eagles did lose this game. Because just on the fact that I do believe if you go up 21-7, that's 2 scores. That's not a touchdown and a field goal. That's not 10 points. That's a touchdown and a touchdown. And especially, it really annoyed me. And what annoyed me more about it is we're going to also get into this in a second, was the holding call on James Bradbury. Because if Bradbury doesn't make that hold and Jalen Hurts gets a chance to go down the field with 1:30 to go and tie or win the game, that fumble would not have been talked about as much, quite frankly. Especially if he goes to win the game. Even if he ties the game and gets it into overtime, I think the fumble is going to be largely overlooked based on how he was able to will his team to win when the chips got pushed to the middle of the table. But the fumble it wasn't the reason, but I think it was a big reason. And I want to get your thoughts on how you think that fumble, which ended up in a scoop and score, which, to Nick Bolton's credit, he had 8 tackles on the day, leading all defenders.
Yeah, he played great.
And the scoop and score. He was everywhere. He was everywhere. So great performance by him. But I want to get your thoughts on the Jalen Hurts fumble and how it impacted the game.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely, I mean, whenever your defense scores, it's automatically a huge momentum boost. So you don't really want to see, you don't want to see that if you're Jalen Hurts. As soon as he saw it, it's like, he's just thinking that's a big like mistake on my part. So I definitely agree with you that is a large part when things started to shift. Because I mean they could have gone up 14, and not that Mahomes can't come back from 14, but Chiefs defense couldn't. I don't think they could have slowed down the Philly offense that much to allow them to come back. So it definitely was a big factor. And I know it wasn't a forced fumble, but I do want to give credit to the Chiefs because right out the gate, they were hitting hard. I mean, you saw they came to play.
Smith.
I mean, they came out and Devontae Smith got rocked, and he's a smaller guy, but he's a tough guy.
Oh, yeah.
And they rocked him. They were playing like it was a Super Bowl. They knew this is a team that's familiar with big games, AFC championship games, Super Bowls, and they knew how to come out and play. So I'm not saying Hurts was, scared to get rocked or anything, but it has to have you a little bit on edge, when you see these guys and how hard they're hitting and how great of a game Bolton had. So I think that's a big factor. And when it comes to the holding call, I mean, he came out and said it was a holding, and I think that was, that's a very mature, accept responsibility. But at the same time, in a critical situation like that on a third down, I don't think the refs need to be calling something that minuscule. Because, I mean, from one view, it looked like he didn't touch him hardly at all. From another view, he had a little bit of jersey. Calls like that happen every single play. They don't get called often, so I'm not sure it should have been called there. But, again, they all came out and said, we're not blaming the refs. We trust these guys. He said, I did hold him, so you can't be mad about that. It was kind of a, sour way to win, sour way to lose. But in the end, I mean, there's multiple plays, like you said. But I think obviously the biggest, most important downfall kind of for the Eagles was that scoop and score.
Yeah, listen, I do agree. And the hold, it honestly, it pained me because, like, one of my biggest points was obviously Jalen Hurts was only down once in the game, and he came back and scored a touchdown. And I would have wanted to see him with 1:30, see if he can go down, because I didn't think he could. And, obviously, if he didn't, then great, I'm right. Again, woohoo. But if he did, it would have capped off probably one of the all-time best Super Bowl performances if he was able to go down with 1:30. Not even if he was able, especially if he was able to get a touchdown to win the game, because Mahomes was only getting 3 before that. If that hole was on third down, so they were getting 3.
Yeah.
That put them on 4th down.
And it was overthrown too.
They were getting 3. So Jalen Hurts was going to get a chance to go down and win the game. And I think the Eagles would have done everything in their power to go for a touchdown, knowing the aggressiveness of their coach and their offense, and they wouldn't have wanted to settle for 3. So I'm disappointed from that standpoint, where Jalen Hurts could have been up in the history books as one of the all-time great Super Bowl performances, particularly from someone who's been in his first real playoff run. But it just is a real shame that Bradbury had to do that. And it was a ticky-tack call. But in the same way, I think the Mahomes call on Osai the previous week, it was the correct call. And you don't want to see that being made in a game like this. But take us back to last year's Super Bowl. Same thing happened to Cooper Kupp. He got held in the last 2 minutes of that game which led to Joe Burrow only having 35 seconds on the clock to go down and score. Obviously, 35 seconds is a bit more than 8 seconds, but the Rams last year got bailed out by a holding penalty on Cooper Kupp, which was also a questionable call. And it was a shame because I think the refs did a great job in this game just letting the players play. And really, I think there was only one other pass interference call. That was the only holding call of the game, and the rest were the false starts and the neutral zone infractions and the offsides. So I think they did a really good job of letting them play, and it just really tainted the game because not only as a analyst on this stage, but as a fan of the game, that's just something you want to see. And even though it was an all-time great game, you don't want to see that happen. But I will ask you, I'd say right now, even though the Chiefs seem to have a stranglehold over the AFC, that the NFC has an easier path to the Super Bowl overall. When you look at the quarterbacks in the AFC, you see Mahomes, you see Burrow, you see Justin Herbert. Now Trevor Lawrence is in the mix. Josh Allen's probably going to be back next year, even though I don't know what he's going to be able to do. Lamar Jackson might be back as well. Who do you think out of these two teams has a better chance of getting back to the Super Bowl next year?
I would go with Philadelphia. Most of their key players are young guys: A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, Jalen Hurts. They're a very young team. And like you said, the path is definitely easier. I mean, when you don't have, Burrow, Josh Allen, guys like that over on your side, it does, become a little bit easier. I do think I'm assuming Juju is probably not going to be back next year. He was on that 1-year deal.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure if they extend him another. I mean, they could be losing him, and he was their best receiver this year. So you really don't know what they're doing, how the draft's going to go for them. But I would definitely say that Philadelphia, just because strength of their defense and their offense is young and it's strong. So I think they got a good chance of being back next year.
Yeah, listen, I have to agree. Right now, I think it's really a two-horse race in the NFC, and I hope the 49ers can figure out their quarterback situation, because whether it's Trey Lance or Brock Purdy, the fact that both of these quarterbacks, when you compare them to Jalen Hurts, are so young, it could be one of the great NFL rivalries in years to come. When you look at both the teams,
sure.
So physical, so talented on both sides of the ball. They have great head coaches, great fan bases. I think it could be one of the great NFL rivalries. And I think that I agree with you. I think the Eagles would have a better chance to get back to the Super Bowl. And particularly after this game, I think we were having a conversation off camera where I rank Jalen Hurts in my quarterback rankings. And after this game, I have him right behind Mahomes and Burrow. I have him at 3 because he impressed me that much in that game that I didn't think he had the right stuff. And the one thing you know about Jalen Hurts is he's going to get back in the lab this offseason, and he is going to keep working. He is just going to be on a mission, particularly because he's up for a contract year. I think next year, maybe he might even be this year.
I believe.
He might. I'll need to double check, but it might be this. I think it's definitely next year, but they could extend him this year if they wanted to. I'll look into that. But the way he performed really showed his character. I think he's going to continue to improve. And we look at the Eagles. The Eagles have the 10th pick in the draft right now.
Yeah.
They also have the 31st pick in the draft. That, in and of itself, is a great package to either trade to get a player, like a bona fide player, or if they want to use it to draft someone who they think is really special in this upcoming draft, or if they want to package it with another player on their current roster right now. That could have some big implications, because if there's one thing we know about the Eagles is the GM, Howie Roseman, he's not afraid to make moves. We saw him splurge on Hassan Reddick. We saw him splurge on a big contract for A.J. Brown to get Jalen Hurts to help. And the one thing it showed is that when you surround him with the right pieces, they can go places. Because the year before, they made the playoffs. They got knocked out by Brady, but they went to the playoffs. And look, I look at the Chiefs and I think that it is going to be incredibly hard to get back to the Super Bowl. I look at my man Joe Burrow and I think that next year, I think is going to be his best chance to win a Super Bowl if I'm Joe Burrow. Because I think that there's a chance for the Chiefs, similar to how they so dominated the NFL. They beat the 49ers in the Super Bowl. Then in the Brady Super Bowl, when they lost, they had a bit of a down year after that. They still got the 1 seed and made the AFC Championship again, but by their standards, it was a down year. And I'm not saying they're going to have a down year overall, but I think they might have a down year by their standards because I think the NFL and the other teams are going to try to do some things. And I also look at Justin Herbert now getting Kellen Moore as his offensive coordinator. That could be a big challenge in the division. Russell Wilson getting Sean Payton. I don't think that's as much of a challenge. And I look, who knows who's going to be the Raiders quarterback? I hope it's not Jimmy Garoppolo. I hope it's Lamar or Aaron Rodgers because that would just spice up the division. But I think it's the Eagles for me too. Listen, like I said again, Mahomes, and I just keep harping on. And I said this, I first guessed this. In the end, the greatness of Mahomes outshined everything that Philadelphia could throw at him. He did everything he needed to do.
He's so good.
He did everything he needed to do, and this was a great performance. Once again, I still really wanted to see Hurts get back with a game-winning drive. But, Gabe, I understand you are short-strapped for time. Do you want to head out?
I was supposed to be there 10 minutes ago, so I probably should get going.
We'll head out. I do want to ask you one more question. Actually, 2 more questions. Good hire. Obviously, Philadelphia's both their coordinators have gone. Good hire by the Colts and a good hire by the Cardinals. Good and bad. What are we thinking?
I think for the Cardinals, definitely a good hire. I'm not sure I don't know which one I would rather than have. Which was the coordinator that got something happened? Was it last night with the Cardinals?
Yeah, Jonathan Gannon. He's the Eagles DC.
Yeah. He was I like that one better than I do the Colts.
Okay.
Simply because I think the Cardinals have a more talented roster than the Colts. They don't really have a quarterback. I expect them to draft a quarterback, but no, I definitely think the Cardinals, having Kyler Murray and all that, I think with a good coach, they can piece together and be a pretty good team. Power rankings came out, I think, last night as well, and they were at 31st.
Yeah.
So I definitely think with an offense like that, they could at least move up in, like 20, around 20, 21 in that area. So I definitely like that hire. Colts, I don't know all that too much about the Colts simply because they're not a very, entertaining team to me. So I can't really give my opinion on that, but I do know I like the Cardinals hire.
Yeah. Look, I think if the Colts can get one of those young quarterbacks, we saw how Shane Steichen, however you say his name, can develop a young quarterback. I really like the Colts hire. I don't like the Colts owner coming out and saying they need to trade up for a quarterback. That was not good. But anyway, last point, Derek Carr, free agent today. 1-word answer. What team do you want to see him play for? 1-word answer, and then I'll let you go.
Gosh, I'm going to say Saints simply because I am a Panthers fan, and I don't really want him to come to Carolina. Not that he's not a bad quarterback, but I would like somebody more up and coming, for as a Carolina fan. So I'm going to go Saints since he just had that nice little visit with them.
Yeah, I'm gonna take your Panthers. Sorry, I think that's where he's gonna end up. But look, we'll get into some free agency talk on our next episode. Gabe, thank you very much for being here with me. Kudos for going with your gut, but I hate to say I told you so. But look, it is what it is. Mahomes is the man. Unfortunately, I wish it was my man Joe Burrow in the Super Bowl, but we'll see if that happens next year. What a performance by him. What a game. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being with us. Priceless Takes, episode 21 in the books. Gabe Golden joined me again. We appreciate your time. My name is Luka Price, your host. We will see you again on Friday for some NBA talk. Oscar, Tyson, and our other guest, Gabe, will be back with some hot stuff. Gabe, thank you for being with me.
Yes, sir. Thank you for having me.
Ladies and gentlemen, Priceless Takes episode 21. Make sure to keep following us on social media. Love the engagement, and we will see you soon.